Let's look at motherboards that use ISA slots. Some call them ISA slots, some say ISA slots, industry standard architecture. If you look at these three black slots right here on the bottom of this motherboard, these are ISA slots. The white ones are PCI. The brown one here in the middle is AGP. Most of the computers in the 80s had only ISA slots. In the 90s, they started coming up with the faster PCI slots also, and then AGP for graphics. And today you have PCI Express and all kinds of fancy slots. But the good old ISA slots are still around, still very much alive. You won't find them in mainstream computers for everyday use, but those that use computers to control equipment, they still use them because they have SBCs, single board computers, that utilize the ISA slots. The ISA slot is more than enough power for those SBCs. So it's a low, in most cases, it's a low-powered base computer with an SBC, and then there's a software that runs on that computer, and through the SBCs, it controls various functions on a larger machinery. The cost of the computer is insignificant compared to what it controls. Uh, that's why these boards, even though they're more expensive than current newer technology boards, they are still around. In this example, what you're looking at is an AT style motherboard with ISA slots. Here is an example of Pentium 2, Pentium 3 slot 1 motherboard, but this is ATX form factor, which means the connectors for keyboard, I mean printer and serial ports are on the motherboard. Here is another example of a hybrid motherboard, which is slot 1 as well as socket 370. This one has one ISA slot on the edge here. Here you have an example of a socket 370 Pentium 3 motherboard that has one ISA slot, 3 PCI, but this has onboard audio, onboard video, onboard LAN. Um, so application that require just one ISA slot, this would be more than sufficient for those. Here an example of a pretty powerful motherboard. This is a P4 Pentium 4 motherboard with 3 ISA slots. They also have them in socket 775. Here's an example of another motherboard that will take socket 7 CPUs, quad core, dual core. Here's another example of a socket 775 Intel Core 2 quad processor motherboard, quad core motherboard, and with PCI Express slots, but it still has an ISA slot. So the higher end boards would be for those applications that require an ISA slot, but they do a lot of processing. So they collect a lot of data and they process it and then use the SBC to take care of that. If you have requirements for motherboards with ISA slots, what you need to do is go to interloper.com, okay, and then on the left hand side you'll see search, and under search there's a link for this colored link which says motherboard search. If you click on that, that will bring you up to this configurator, and this is the best on the internet. It will help you find a motherboard based on specifications. It doesn't favor any manufacturer. It just helps you select a specific type of motherboard. So let's say you want a socket 775 motherboard. You want a powerful motherboard, but you want it with some juice in it. So you can go and find the right socket first. Alright, here we go, socket 775. And how many ISA slots do you need? Yes, let's say you just need one ISA slot. Alright, and you prefer ATX. You also want to have SATA capabilities. That's the hard drive you want to use. You want that to have a network port on it. Great. And you want it to have onboard VGA also. Let's say if it pulls up anything. Maybe there isn't any such board. Well, no, I'm wrong. There are 3 motherboards that fill those criteria. And then you can click on that and to bring up the details on that motherboard. So if you have requirements for any specific type of motherboard, with or without ISA, go to interloper.com, and on the left side there's this search feature, and make sure you put that to good use. All right, take care.